Welcome to Keep Canada Weird Remembers, a series that revisits strange times in Canada's strange past.
Jordan, let's time travel together. It's something we both enjoy doing. 2024 was kind of a scary year. We actually almost lost our dearly beloved Canada Post with the postal strike.
It was almost hard to get junk mail. I didn't get any junk mail for, I think, like 2 or 3 months. It was a pain in the butt. And right before Christmas.
Right before Christmas, yeah. And it was difficult to watch the death of a postal service. But I'm thinking there were lessons learned there that we could maybe gather from a good time travel back to 1987 to the death of a small post office.
I know exactly what you're talking about. We should be going to St. Margaret's Bay, a community in Nova Scotia, where what happened in 2024 is not nearly as dramatic as what they went through when they lost their postal system.
Yeah.
In November of 1987, a small Nova Scotia community came together to mourn a loss that to the people of 2024 may seem a little unusual. But for the people of head of St. Margaret's Bay, this loss was the end of something much deeper. Verna Dunlop was the community's postmaster, and she ran the local post office, which is much different than the style we know today. Instead of a service desk at a local drugstore, this post office occupied a room in Verna's home, and it was the heartbeat of their community. A space where neighbors gathered, where stories were shared, and where a sense of belonging was fostered. And that's why when Canada Post announced that they would be replacing this homegrown post office with a set of roadside mailboxes, the people of head of St. Margaret's Bay grieved in a way as unique as that post office in Verna's home. They held a funeral for it.
Here at home, Canada Post has closed 40 rural post offices across the country so far this year. The latest is in a small community in Nova Scotia. It closed today, and the residents felt so bad about it they held a funeral.
There has been a post office at head of St. Margaret's Bay for 127 years.
Do you want to take your mother's meal over?
Yeah, sure, Verna.
Okay.
Verna Dunlop carries on the tradition from the back of her home. The coffee's usually on, and on cold days there might even be some chowder. In rural communities across Canada, the post office is more than a place to buy stamps and pick up your mail, and this one is no exception.
Okay, you got yours. That's your Crampies. Okay, very good.
It's really the center of the village.
Residents here have been fighting for months to keep their post office. But Canada Post says it loses money. It's got to close. As of next week, they'll buy their stamps in this gift shop 3 kilometers down the road. These new super boxes will replace Verna Dunlop. Canada Post says the change will provide better service. Residents say they've been robbed of something precious.
There's no contact with an aluminum box and a key.
We do not want those super mailboxes. We want to have a community life.
Today, the community gathered outside Verna Dunlop's house for a funeral.
It is the last time we shall be able to come here for our mail in the warm and friendly atmosphere of Mrs. Dunlop's home. Today is our last post.
They draped the mailbox in black. Wreaths were sent by towns and villages from all over the country concerned about Canada Post's plan to close 5,200 rural post offices over the next 10 years.
And we hope that this is going to stop. We hope that the way of life that we're used to, we can keep.
Just as Verna Dunlop's post office came to symbolize for these people the best qualities of rural life, so does its passing remind them of the steady erosion of that way of life. That, they say, is something Canada Post does not understand.
I want to start with this. We're in 1987 now. I would have thought situations like this, like a post office being run out of some lady's, spare bedroom, was a thing of, the 1920s or 1930s. Like, this seems so out of place, even in 1987.
I can't imagine the lack of privacy that Verna Dunlop would have had to have endured having this post office in a bedroom in her home, like the entire community coming and going constantly. She's having to feed them all the time. She talked about serving them chowder. Like
like, here, give this to your grandma. Like, I guarantee though, this type of person who would be okay with this was her life. Like, I can see how she would, with like a mailman or mailwoman or mail person or whatever that comes door to door and it gets to meet everybody in the neighborhood. Even that, like that was something we grew up with. And the mailman was kind of like a part of your community. You probably knew who he was and whatever. Like when that ended, because that ended for us in Nova Scotia, maybe like 15 years ago, and was replaced by these roadside mailboxes. Like that was a big change. But this, what we're hearing with it in Verna's, like, again, spare bedroom, it just seems so like she must have been such a part of the community. But it also, again, it seems like it's from hundreds of years ago. I feel like the mail should come up to her house like on a horse and buggy or something.
But I really think she probably sacrificed a lot of personal family relationships to have this post office in her home. Because can you imagine being married to someone who insists on running a post office out of your living room?
And taking to the next level of actually like serving people food. And because she was kind of, I guarantee she was like the unofficial mayor of that community, because she would have had access to everybody. She would have been in everybody's business if she wanted to. But she's also like, she's the unofficial mayor. She's kind of like running town square. She was serving people coffee and stuff. So she was kind of like running a little coffee shop, roadside stand, and a post office out of her house. It's cool that stuff like that existed, but she would have been giving up a lot. And, it's one thing if everyone in your community is reasonable and abides by your open and close hours, but knowing the way people are nowadays in 2024, 2025, there'd be, every community has one nutcase who'd be there in the middle of the night looking for his package.
Well, imagine, especially in 1987, where we are now, most people are still, well, everybody's still mailing in their tax returns, their personal tax returns. So you can imagine, the tax deadline, the day before the tax deadline, the entire town trying to jam their tax returns into, Verna's, post office in her living room. Like it's that whole day, like that whole night there, probably pounding on her window.
Yeah.
And like, please, I'm being audited.
Also, just the liability and stuff. I come from an insurance background. I know if you were running a post office out of your house, the chance of something happening, a slip and fall accident or something, you'd think that would be so high. I'm surprised Canada Post, even in 1987, would have allowed this to happen. I'm not surprised that they shut this down and replaced an in-house post office with a cold, boring bank of mailboxes. So it's like what they replaced it with is just like, like 50 mailboxes.
I used to get my mail from them.
How do you get your mail now? Do you get it to your mailbox?
It comes to my house.
Okay. That doesn't happen here. We have like a community mailbox all across Halifax. I think this is the way it is. A community mailbox, and you have a key. So there's a certain number you can open it.
Yeah. No, my mail comes right to my house. One thing in the story too, that they talked about and they really emphasized was how they have to go 3 kilometers now down the road to get their stamps.
Yeah. Poor things.
But get your steps in, people. Like 3 kilometers is a nice, brisk walk. So enjoy it.
Yeah. Just given how serious this is to them in 1987, imagine what they're thinking today with what we deal with. Our post office, our postal system is so cold and devoid of like human interactions. It's so much has changed. And not for the better. Like there's some things about the way things used to be that are certainly better. One was the idea of customer service and the human touch. That has gone from everything. It seems now, of course, like technology has changed everything, but technology has opened the doors to automation and efficiency to the point of just madness. Like everything is so efficient and automated, and the customer service died right around the same time that the post office in Verna Dunlop's home in head of St. Margaret's Bay was being mourned at this funeral. Is it technology that did it? Is it corporate greed? Why do things like this not exist anymore?
It just doesn't make sense financially to run a post office like that. I mean, it totally makes sense in the grand scheme of Canada Post. It's again these little post offices and little convenience stores, general stores, from neighborhoods where that's where you got everything. Those days are gone, and now you have to walk or drive 3 kilometers for stamps. And now you have to get your mail from a robot.
Mm-hmm.
But you have to be careful because you don't want to fall in love with the robot. I think that's why they're so resistant to these super mailboxes, is that they're going to fall in love with them.
Mm. Yeah, I think that's a pretty that's a pretty serious risk and definitely a growing concern. I don't think that was mentioned in the 2024 Canada Post strike. I think they had other concerns about benefits and pay and all these sorts of things, but yeah, it could be love with robots that's an issue. Maybe that'll be the next strike. Maybe people from 2065 will take the time machine back to 2026 and hear about that.
Yeah.
It's a shame that things like this died, but again, it's great to have this unique post office be the heart of the community, but Canada Post isn't going to waste money making that happen. If they can save money by setting up a bank of mailboxes and laying off Verna Dunlop in her in-home post office, they're going to do it. It makes sense.
And how many people, let's be honest, got food poisoning from Verna's corn chowder?
That's the untold story here.
Yeah.
Keep Canada Weird is written, hosted, and produced by the Nighttime Podcast.
And now to our viewers and listeners everywhere, good night.